Superior Kale Charcoal Toothpaste.
Hello, good evening, welcome. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live from Yusabata, Desawe Kanda, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279. We're all across the world on 3news.com. I am Alfred Ocansey. Tonight, petitions for the removal of the Chief Justice fraught with controversy and multiple lawsuits questioning the constitutionality of the procedure adopted by the President and seeking to stop the process altogether. We unpack the issues tonight. Also, 13 more persons arrested in connection with the purported missing electricity company of Ghana containers. We have new information coming in, plus an interview with the national security operatives who led this operation. Stay with us. Also, the National Intelligence Bureau has intercepted massive consignment of cocaine en route to Accra from the central region. Raising security concerns, we engaged a security expert on this because this particular consignment was seized on the high seas and also on a fishing vessel from the information we got. So this is not from the airport or the land borders. That's another way, another also a means of transporting the drugs into this country. That's the fundamental question on the minds of people who have been watching the drugs trade in this country. As always, you are an integral part of the conversation. Let's hear from you. The hashtag we're using is Ghana Tonight on Facebook and on X. Let's get talking. Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
Twelve Chinese and a Ghanaian have been arrested by operatives of national security in connection with the missing ECG containers at the Tema port. The suspects from two aluminium smelting companies located in Shire Hills were arrested in an operation on Thursday of intelligence. Operatives of national security are also on a manhunt for another Chinese who is on the run. Chief Superintendent Al Hassan Osman is the Director of Investigation at the National Security Council.
They are currently suspects, and by law they are entitled to a counsel of their own choice. So we will grant them that opportunity, but of course within the next 48 hours we will also exercise our rights by ensuring that we complete investigation and put them before a court of competent jurisdiction. It is the National Security Secretariat that is in charge of this investigation. So they will definitely be in the custody of the NIB.
The National Intelligence Bureau, NIB, has intercepted a massive consignment of cocaine weighing 3.3 tons en route to Accra from the central region. The operation, conducted on March 4, 2025 at Pedu Junction in Cape Coast, uncovered 143 sacks of cocaine concealed beneath sand in a tipper truck traveling from Takoradi to Waja. Field testing conducted by the Narcotics Control Commission, NACOC, confirmed the substance as raw cocaine. The initial seizure weighed 2,974 kilograms. Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono has formally written to President John Mahama and the Council of State for her to be provided with copies of the petitions against her. Citing Article 146 of the Constitution, the Chief Justice reminded the President that it was requisite for her to be notified of the various petitions for her to respond. She noted that the evidence contained in the petition, coupled with her response, would guide the Council of State to determine whether a case has been made for her to be removed. Member of Parliament for Asin North, James Jachikwason, says he is unperturbed by the delay in the ruling of his submission of no case after the court gave another adjournment in the matter. The High Court was set to decide on whether the prosecution had made a case for the legislator to open his defense or be discharged.
The ruling.
We're all anticipating that it will come to an end today. My friends, family, everybody. We have this ongoing for too long. Everybody seems to be tired of it. So, but, you know, there's a reason for everything that happens in life. So I'm so patient enough, but also still resilient to push through. You know, 5 years I've gone through this. A week will make no difference, right? So it's gonna happen.
The Ministry of Education is to convert some schools in the rural areas into boarding houses. This, according to the ministry, is to reverse the double-track system where some 150,000 students have been affected. Sector Minister Haruna Idrisu was addressing the media when he inaugurated a committee to consider reversing the double-track system.
Functional free senior high school that is adequately funded with supporting infrastructure, both lecture and accommodation. A few of the schools will convert them into boarding schools where necessary, particularly in the rural areas. That will require infrastructure support, but we'll do that in order that they are absorbed into it.
Oh, there's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Ghana Tonight. And as always, proudly brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, and Kale Charcoal Toothpaste. Happy Smile. Up next here on Ghana Tonight. Petitions for the removal of the Chief Justice fraught with controversy and multiple lawsuits questioning the constitutionality and legality of the procedure adopted by the President, John Dramani Mahama, and seeking to stop the process altogether. We're going to unpack the issues tonight and we'll just do a quick recall, because it's just on Tuesday, 2 days ago, that we got notice from that statement that Phyllis Kwatiofosu, the Minister in charge of Government Communications and also spokesperson for President John Dramani Mahama, detailing the fact that some 3 petitions have been received against the Chief Justice for the removal of the Chief Justice. Now, the President, in following through the details of Article 1466 of the 1992 Constitution, was based on that statement, reported to have forwarded those 3 to the Council of State for the consultative process to begin. Now, it is this particular detail that was put out in that statement from Phyllis Kwatiofosu 2 days ago that has generated a number of happenings today. A number of things have happened with respect to this particular information 2 days ago. We started off the day with a suit by the old Tafo Member of Parliament, Vincent Eko Asifua, which was filed by his lawyer and the former, in the immediate past, Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame. That's what we're going to start with, because after that, a number of things have happened. Dennis Barberi Wadam Esquire is with me in studio. Dennis, it's been a day full of legalese, is it not?
Well, it's been a long day, and it doesn't look like it's going to end tonight. We still have a lot more days to go.
There's a lot more to do.
Yes. And so, like you rightly mentioned, we started off the day with this particular lawsuit by Vincent Asafua, and his contention is that the route that the President has taken in looking into the petitions that have been put before him for the removal of the Chief Justice, that route is unconstitutional, and that some processes ought to have been taken before the President could even refer the petition to the Council of State for them to begin the consultation process. So that really was the beginning of all the controversy, even beyond what we had mentioned on Tuesday as to how the committee itself, together with the president, are going to do their work with respect to determining a prima facie case.
That's right.
And even going beyond to now set up that committee to look into the matter. But of course, these are just a recap of the reliefs that Vincent is seeking in respect of this. So he says that he wants a declaration that upon the true and proper interpretation of Articles 146, and mind you, 146 is the provision that relates to the removal of Superior Court justices and the Chief Justice. We had gone through this before, but we'll also be looking at parts of it because parts of it are in controversy, especially the 1466.
Right.
And also that Articles 146 and 296 of the Constitution. The President is mandated to notify the Chief Justice about a petition for the removal and solicit her comments. So the point that Vincent is making is to the effect that that letter that we got on Tuesday announcing that the President had forwarded the petitions to the Council of State for the consultation process to begin. He says that if you read the provisions together with Article 296, the President ought to have notified the Chief Justice about the pendency of the petitions and also to elicit some comments from her so that it will form part of the consultation that is ongoing. And to that extent that it wasn't done, it meant that he wanted the Supreme Court, or he wants the Supreme Court to declare that as unconstitutional.
So what? So before the President forwarded this petition, the three of them, the Council of State, the consultation or letting the Chief Justice know that, look, these petitions have been brought to my attention and these are the details of it, should have been done?
Yes, so when this suit came up in the public, there were questions as to how Vincent got to know as a fact that the Chief Justice was not notified and that she did not get the opportunity to comment on the matter. However, as the day went by, we got answers to that question.
Indeed.
Because later, we would show a letter from the Chief Justice herself to the President, and then the Council of State requesting that she be notified officially and also be given the opportunity to comment on some of the things that are said to be in the petitions. She wants to have a look at the petitions as has been put in this lawsuit as well. So that answer clearly is there.
But maybe that brings up another question, which I know you probably will give us an answer as to whether Article 1466 specifically states explicitly that the Chief Justice should be notified of the details of the petition at any point.
Right, so that's, yes, we can also look at it. But remember, in crafting the reliefs, he does not just leave it at Article 146. He adds another article, 296. Even when you look further, he adds another one, 23. And 23 and 296 are key when it comes to administrative justice. He does so because, in his view, when the President together with the Council of State are doing the consultation, they ought to be mindful that they need to be fair to the persons whose rights are going to be affected. And in doing so, he says that they should avert their minds to Article 23 and 296. So that's how come you may not see that expressly stated in 146, but when you look at these put together, you may come to that conclusion. Well, that's the argument he's making as to whether the Supreme Court will be minded to go with him or not. It's a matter that will be determined on a future date. But just to understand why he does not just leave it at 146 and why, if you look at 1466, you may not find that provided in there expressly. That is the reason for that one. So, so just to continue with the recap that I was doing, he says that because the President failed to do so, that's notify the CG, it constitutes a violation of a fundamental right to fair hearing contained in Articles 23 and 296 and renders the consultation processes for the removal of the CG initiated by the President now void and of no effects. So in effect, he's saying, for the fact that you did not do this before you announced to us that this process has already started, it constitutes a violation of her human rights because she's entitled to fair hearing.
Right.
So,
and the fair hearing captured in that demand that even before these petitions were forwarded to the Council of State, the Chief Justice should have been heard.
That is her view. I mean, that is his view. And of course, when you look at the letter that has been written by the Chief Justice herself to the Presidency and the Council of State, asking for a copy, copies of the petitions, and also asking for the opportunity to make her comments, she did indicate that, yes, when you look at our jurisprudence, it is a practice that anytime something of that nature comes up, there has to be an opportunity for the person to be notified and also for that person to also comment. She cites instances where she herself as Chief Justice. Remember, when you look at Article 1463, which makes provision for the removal of the justices of the superior courts, the petitions typically are referred to the Chief Justice, who makes a determination of a prima facie case. She says that in her case, at least, she has had opportunity of presiding over 5 of them. And in each instance, she has notified the persons involved and given them the opportunity to comment. She says that based on that, together with some constitutional provisions, together with common law that she stated, she says that she should be given the opportunity, at least 7 days, to respond to the petitions that are before the President and the Council of States, who we understand have already started the consultation process.
And that's on the face of what Phyllis Kwachof also said in that release, is it not?
Exactly.
But let's look at a few more, because then you lay the foundation with what Vincent Assefuah is seeking as his reliefs.
Yes.
In this first suit that we saw. Then there was a second one, right?
Yes.
That came in to also make that same, similar and even more reliefs sought.
Yes.
Against this whole process that the president is undertaking.
So later in the day, we got the suit by one Ebenezer Osei Osu, who is also making basically the same arguments. That to the extent that the president did not get the petitions to the CJ and to also get her comments in there before proceeding on what they are doing now. To that extent, it's unconstitutional. But beyond the declaration that this Ebenezer is seeking, he also wants that, in fact, the president be restrained from proceeding on whatever they are doing now. That is to say that the process of the consultation process that is ongoing together with the Council of State should be stopped. He wants an order from the Supreme Court to stop that process. In fact, he also wants that the petitions actually be withdrawn. I see. The three petitions that the president has received. So the only difference between what Vincent has presented and what Ebenezer is seeking is that Ebenezer has far-reaching demands, if I may put it that way. Because in his case, he's also seeking some restraining orders against the president from doing what he's doing, and also to even withdraw the petitions as they are before the president and the Council of States. So essentially, that's how the day unfolded, and it's been a lot of conversation about at what point exactly should the Chief Justice's comments be invited. Should it be before the petitions were even forwarded to the Council of State? Could it be that as the Council of State together with the President are doing the consultation, they may later invite her? But it's instructive to note that in the Chief Justice's letter, she did indicate that she heard of the publication on Tuesday. Rightfully so, because it was on Tuesday evening that we also started this conversation. Right. She says that from that time till date, till the time that she wrote the letter, 27, that's today, she had not received any notification, or she had not been formally informed that this is what is happening. But that raises another question. Are there timelines as to when exactly the Council of State should invite the Chief Justice to be heard on the petitions against her? Because as you rightly indicate, we got notice of the existence of these 3 petitions on Tuesday. It stands to reason, all things being equal, that the constitutive process has begun maybe from Wednesday, today is Thursday. The process is ongoing. Okay, so how about that? I quite recall that when we're doing the analysis on the removal of the OSP, those provisions gave specific timelines that within this period of time, A, B, C, D is supposed to happen. Unlike that, when you look at Article 1466 of the 1992 Constitution, the provision that the whole controversy revolves, it does not state in express terms what timelines the president should be working with. And for emphasis, let's just look at it again. That where petition where the petition is for the removal of the Chief Justice, the President shall, in consultation with the Council of State, appoint a committee consisting of 2 justices of the Supreme Court, one of whom shall be appointed chairman by the President, and 3 other persons who are, it goes on and on. What we are pointing out here is that you don't find those timelines there. However, if you, I mean, it's okay that when something is ongoing and you feel that there's a threatened breach or there's a breach which is likely to happen and it will affect you, you have the right to take steps to protect it.
I see. So that's what you suspect the CJ is
doing.
So
from that thinking, you can understand why the Vincent is going to court, because he says that if that is allowed to continue, then there will be a breach of the Constitution.
I see. Now, it's interesting you bring this matter, because that's the same point I sought to find out from. And we're going to go into the next issue, because there's a latest development to this that we're following, all of what we've been talking about. And let's see what the Chief Justice is demanding exactly. That is, if we do have it. The Chief Justice's letter to the Council of State, the President himself as well, she's making some demands. Let's get into the details of it. You've touched on it briefly, but specifically, what's she asking for?
Well, so these are the key lights of what the Chief Justice has been speaking about. I mean, that's contained in her letter. That a defendant cannot be subjected to a trial unless preliminary process of receiving their response has been adhered to. So this was the Chief Justice stating what the law is, based on which she was making the request for the petitions and also an opportunity to make her input. Now she says that up to date, that's today, the Chief Justice hasn't been shown the petitions or allowed to respond to them. Again, she continues by saying that before a case could be made, it's a combination of things. So she explains that the combination of evidence in the petition and the response of the Chief Justice will provide material for consultation between the President and the Council of State. That is to say, even before the President could forward the petitions to the Council of State for the consultation to begin, they needed to have her make an input, so that her input or her response, together with the content of the petition, would form the basis for their consultation. Again, she says that she wants that the petitions be forwarded to her and given at least 7 days after receipt of the petitions, so that she can provide her response. There's an update on this, because we have seen some persons from government seem to suggest that when the President forwarded the letter that accompanied the petitions to the Council of State, it included the question of whether or not the petition should be forwarded to the CJ, the Chief Justice, for her to respond to. That is to say, there is a consideration of whether or not this should even be allowed in the first place. And it's also part of the consultation that is ongoing.
I see. And it's a very interesting reference that you make. And then stay with me, because we have to get the next issue that's come up in the few hours before we came on air. There's another development to this particular story. Christian Malmhesi is private legal practitioner. He's joining us on Zoom right now. Appreciate your time. And the questions that come up still borders on Article 1466 of the 1992 Constitution, because clearly, as Dennis read, does the law clearly prescribe exactly when the Chief Justice should be notified during this process of consultation as has kickstart now, or when the Council of State deems it is within their discretion to decide when she's going to be invited, because the process is just 2 days old, as far as we do know. Council.
Thank you so much for this question. You see, clearly speaking, the whole of Article 146, there is no timeline indicated. also there is nothing or a clause indicating what you are asking. But like I've mentioned by you already, you see, there is this principle that we say that the Constitution is a living document, or is a living organism. It's a living document. Now, that concept of law comes in when we are doing interpretation of constitutional provisions, so that we don't interpret constitutional provision by just a clause. If the interpretation of that clause will render the meaning of that constitution absurd, incorrigible, and unconscionable. If you have a cursory look at Article 146, the parameters and procedures have largely been espoused by legal experts up until now because of this matter that has come up. So I'll not bore your viewers with all of that education, but the critical area of attention is where my submission is most interested in. Now, having petitioned the president by Article 146 is to pass it on to the Council of State, and then they thereafter would initiate a committee of 5. 2 of the members would be Supreme Court justices, one of whom would be the chairman, and the other 3 would be laymen, as we so call them, because they are not supposed to be members of parliament, members of Council of State, or lawyers. I'll later critique on that as well. But the interesting or curious point is that when it comes to the determination of prima facie evidence, you would realize that that principle or position is left to be determined by the president and or with the Council of State. Now, does the quiet mentioning or the nearly absent mentioning of prima facie evidence to be determined by the president and or the Council of State inure to an injustice of the Supreme Court is a constitutional point to be looked at. The Constitution did not provide for that. The second thing to also look at is comparing this or juxtaposing this to the other fold of Article 146, which fold indicates that when it comes to the removal of justices of the Superior Court, a petition filed to the president, conveyed thereof, which gets to the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice, being the head of the judiciary and clothed with all the legal brain, determines the petition on a prima facie case. Now, it must also be said that this determination may have recourse with a response from the other side, because this brings to bear that Article 146 cannot be construed in the literalist sense, because literal interpretation has long been departed away with. And this was espoused in the El Clasicus case of SOA JSC, where that justice dissented and further entrenched the position that the Constitution is a living document. And by that, the interpretation of the Constitution must be interpreted to result in the living tenets of the day. And that the Constitution is not a static document. Now, in considering Article 146, we need to avert our minds to the point that there remain other clauses which conjunctively, when interpreted together with Article 146, will make the Constitution a living document.
I get the point.
And will prevent injustice from occasioning.
I get the point, Counsel. And you see, then what you have just said brings up another issue, to the extent that the consultative process has just begun. This we got to know per the statement from Felix Kwachofoso on Tuesday that 3 petitions have been received. Had that statement not come out, would have all not known about this. Now, from Wednesday and today, all things being equal, it's been 2 days of that process, if it has kickstart at all, being in motion. Would you agree with those who say that Vincent Assefuah and by extension, the Chief Justice are probably all going ahead of themselves by asking to be heard because the consultative process is at its elementary stage, very early in the day, 2 days as yet. So if, for instance, the Chief Justice is written to tomorrow, or there are plans to write to her tomorrow or Monday, then that would have settled all of this and answered all the questions being asked now, is it not?
Yeah, I started off by saying that the Constitution does not provide timelines for that. It does not say that after petition has been made, it then goes to president. After petition has been made to president, in between president and in between president and then Council of State, Chief Justice should be given a copy so that she would respond to. That has not, no timeline exists. But because of the absence of such a timeline, and because the procedures involved in Article 146, some of them are silent, the conjunctive interpretation of the Constitution comes to play. And that makes the Constitution a living document. Especially when, if you look at the first limb as I explained, when the president receives the petition for the removal of a justice of the Supreme Court, other than the Chief Justice, he is enjoined to refer the petition to the Chief Justice, who will determine it on a prima facie level. The Chief Justice, enjoined with fair hearing, would want to know what the other party would say, because the Chief Justice knows rules of law. So in the situation where that is determined on the face of it, because there's balance of rights, and that determination of the prima facie evidence is made.
Right.
A school of thought would say that the petition as received by the Chief Justice in the sense of removal of a superior court, the Chief Justice would have to look at the face of it and determine whether it is apparent, of the face of the petition, it is enough to say that a substantive case has been made against the removal of the Superior Court Justice on the grounds of stated misbehavior, infirmity of body or mind, and then
incompetence.
What do you call it? The third one, incompetence.
Incompetence, yes. But then again, Counsel, there are those who also make the point that the process should have just been allowed to move as it is going now, because really no injurious decision has been taken against the Chief Justice as yet, or no decision or action has been taken that injures or threatens to violate the rights of the Chief Justice. So where exactly is the concern, really?
So, as the procedure wears on, she needs to be part of the procedure. I was just making the point that because the prima facie evidence or case would be established by these two institutions, and or, the operative word is and or, it means that her input in respect of response must be put in, because at the end of the day, the institutions are going to exercise such judicial discretionary power. And her side having been heard, because the accused must know the accuser and must know the content of what the accuser is using against the accused, so that when they determine that a prima facie case has been determined, then they'll move on to say a committee be set for the hearing to be done. So the Chief Justice wants to see that so that she puts in a response before the hearing commences. Because when the hearing commences, or when the constitution of the committee is put in motion, that is not when she is now to be heard, or she's now to respond. So she wants her rights to be recognized. Looking at Article 19, Article 23, and Article 296.
Okay, thank you. Well,
so that conjunctively, all of these things will be determined in unison with Article 146.
I see.
And then that will follow.
Not so that 1466 doesn't stand alone in itself. But I thank you. I think the point is well made in there. There's a development as well, which we've been monitoring quite closely related to all what we've been talking about and all that's been happening since morning. Dennis, there's an injunction?
Yes. So in addition to the writ of summons that was filed this morning, also there was an injunction application that was also filed. And this will be heard on Wednesday. That is to say...
Injunction by who?
By Vincent.
Asafua?
Yes, in addition to the writ of summons that was filed.
I see.
So that is to say that while we pursue this matter, put the process on hold. Let's deal with it. If the matter is determined, they can proceed with it. So the relevant part of the affidavit in support is what you just see there, where he's talking about the fact that the impugn process, as he calls the process, and that 146, that should it proceed and be concluded before the instant action is heard. The instant action here refers to his writ of summons in respect of, what we saw earlier. That same will undermine the rule of law, the Constitution. He goes on to say that, and the powers of the judiciary in discharging its constitutional duty of determining disputes between all persons in Ghana once its jurisdiction is properly invoked. Then he goes on to say that he's been advised by counsel, and he believes him to be true, that irreparable damage and grave injury will be caused to the people of Ghana if the President and the Council of State proceeds upon a pursuit of the tainted processes and same is subsequently declared unconstitutional by this honorable court. That is to say, if they allow the process to continue and eventually the court decides a case in his favor, the damage that will be caused will be so much that it cannot be repaired. And to that extent, he wants that the court to grant an injunction so that the process will be on hold while they pursue this matter. When it is done and dusted, then whoever is declared victor in that situation, then they will determine whether to proceed.
And when is this injunction due to be heard?
Wednesday. That's next Wednesday.
Next week, Wednesday.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on this. Thank you so much. Dennis Poberi Wadam Esquire in there. But this is one that is a developing story. It's developing quite fluidly, and we'll keep an eye on it because tomorrow presents yet another expectation of some things also to come related to this particular issue. But coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, National Intelligence Bureau intercepts massive consignment of cocaine en route to Accra from the central region, raising security concerns. We engage a security expert on this particular development, but here's what we do know. What you see on the screen, we're going to show you a bit more detail because we have the full videos and pictures of what happened just some few hours ago today. The National Intelligence Bureau has intercepted a massive consignment of cocaine weighing 3.3 tons en route to Accra from the central region. Now, the operation conducted on March 4, 2025 at Pedu Junction in Cape Coast uncovered 143 sacks of cocaine concealed beneath sand in a tipper truck traveling from Takoradi to Waja. Now, the truck had 2 occupants and was intercepted following the intelligence gathered by the efforts of the National Intelligence Bureau officials. Now, field testing, from what we got to know, conducted by the Narcotics Control Commission, confirmed the substance as raw cocaine. The initial seizure weighed 2,974 kilograms. Subsequent intelligence-led operations on March 8, led by the National Intelligence Bureau officers to the suspect residence, where an additional 13 sacks and 1 bag of suspected cocaine weighing 345 kilograms were discovered. We also got to know that laboratory tests by the Narcotics Control Commission and the Ghana Standards Authority again confirmed the total consignment to be 3,319 kilograms as high purity cocaine ranging between 50% and 70% purity. The cocaine, with an estimated street value exceeding $350 million, is believed to have entered the country via sea using fishing vessels. Take note of that, using fishing vessels. 2 suspects, we understand, Isaac Kweko and Kenneth Kobina, have been remanded into custody and are scheduled to reappear in court on April 2nd, 2025. And the NIB, from what we do know, has identified additional suspects currently at large and is pursuing the arrest to ensure all individuals involved are brought to book. Dr. Victor Docker is a security consultant lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. He has been also doing some research regarding all of this, the drug trade in this country. Is joining us on Zoom right now. Dr. Victor Docker, appreciate you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. The focus on the fight against illicit drugs in this country has most of it been on the major points of entry into the country, at the airports and then the land borders. This one, we're hearing, entered into Ghana through the high seas. The transaction was undertaken on the high seas with a fishing vessel. How does all of this strike you?
Thank you very much. So all this is a concern in that regard for all stakeholders, and then CSOs, also of us are following. Now, it brings to a major issue as to how stakeholders, by that I mean you can talk about focal persons when it comes to the high seas. Now, so it means the focus now has to shift from the land borders, the airports, and then the border towns, and then specifically concentrated on the seas, the high seas, which is also an entry point. So it means much of attention, and then the necessary, mechanisms with regards to operational duties, resource capacity building, and then equipment has to be focused in that area. So the first respondents, the Navy, has to be well resourced, and then capacity enhanced with regards to how to deal with these kind of issues, illegal activities on the high seas. But I know there are entry points with regards to when vessels are coming in, they have to be identified and all of that. So then it means what actually happened has to do with some criminal gangs or criminal groups who have been operating for some time now, and they took advantage of the system to, push their drugs in there. So simply put, I think we should now have some more focus with regards to the sea entry points when it comes to, doing business trade, because then with this, we are now getting to know that, yes, if we neglect that area and focus more on the land holders, then we wouldn't be doing much good. So then we should equally give the same attention as we do with the land holders to the sea, entry points. We have the Takwari port, the Tema port, should equally have an undivided attention with regards to how we do operations in those areas.
But these fishing vessels, we understand, don't dock at the ports, Dr. Alfred Ocansey. So yes, I mean, we can put all the surveillance and everything at the Tema port, Takrady ports, and all of these places. But from the information we got from our sources in the National Intelligence Bureau, these fishing vessels right to meet the bigger vessels or the larger vessels on the high seas. They pick these consignment and then they drive back or ride back to shore. Then they also offload onto a vehicle and it is transported. So it is not as though, the monitoring at the port can really address this matter. So what should be the mechanism adopted in ensuring that this high seas trade is also tackled?
Okay, so what goes into it with regards to vessels docking on high seas at some points? How many nautical miles were they at close to Ghana seas? We need to look at that. Now, which vessels or smaller boats are those operating in the high waters that would have contact with these vessels coming in? Where was that bigger vessel coming from? That is the first question we need to, ascertain. And then what purpose for which it was, using our routes? What purpose was it hoping to achieve? Now, for we as an institution, as a nation, we need to look at how we can operationalize activities of what these smaller vessels going out to sea for the purposes of what? Fishing. But then we don't even know what they go to the high seas to do. Now, this has also, given evidence that most of the fishing vessels or smaller boats don't go to the high seas just for fishing, but for the purposes of what? Doing illegal trade in there. And this is a very good example to that. So now, how do we ascertain, get more information in regards to how this vessel, stopped at where it did, and then we have these smaller vessels go in there, bring these, illegal drugs into the system, and then through which, ports, entry ports, did they offload these vessels onto the track inland? We need to look at all these things. So best approach is how we can now monitor those vessels coming into our waters. Now it becomes difficult, to ascertain or even approach that vessel if it is nowhere near your waters. Then you will have to, enact international law on maritime and then approach the vessel for searching purposes, investigate for which purpose they are in the doctor and what activities they are indulging.
Right.
So it all boils down to how we equip our agencies.
Okay. Right. Dr. Adoke, appreciate your time on this. Thank you so much for joining us. He's a lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, security analyst as well. But coming up next, after this quick break here on Ghana Tonight, another development. 13 more people arrested in connection with the purported missing electricity company of Ghana containers. Chinese nationals, we understand. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly with some more details.
Hello, my friends. My name is Kids Toothpaste.
Wow.
I was made to be gentle on your gum, but protected. I will protect your teeth from cavity, make your teeth whiter, stronger, keep your mouth fresh all day. And best of all, I'm strawberry flavored. So put on a smile and try me.
That's amazing.
Just try me. That's my job.
If you say so, jump on my brush.
Makes your teeth stronger, chicky whiter, chicky stronger.
Yay! You did it!
I'm glad you like your new toothpaste. Don't forget to brush both day and night.
Kids, happy smile.
Ramadan is here again, and Danube
that you see on the screen there. Now, the cables believed to be part of the missing consignment were traced to an aluminum smelter owned by the Chinese located at Shai Hills. The total number of suspects rounded up at the end of the operation was 19, including these Chinese nationals. Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Jinapor, earlier today revealed that security operatives have traced 40 out of the over 1,300 missing containers belonging to the Electricity Company of Ghana to a warehouse in Gbon. Now, Chief Superintendent Al-Hassan Osman has been speaking to my colleague Komla Kluche, and these are the Chinese nationals that you see there, arrested by the National Security Operatives earlier today. They were tracing the content of the containers that cannot be accounted for as per the committee set up to investigate procurement by the Electricity Company of Ghana. Over 1,300, specifically 1,347 containers cannot be accounted for. And they trace some of these containers, according to the information we're getting, to these persons. and a Ghanaian as well. So let's hear from the Chief Superintendent. I speak to my colleague, Komla Kluche, at this particular venue where these Chinese nationals and the Ghanaian were arrested. Take a look.
Scrap companies. We followed that intel and got to this particular company located in Shire Hills. And we realized that several of these ECG cables have been cut into pieces and then melted into liquid form, molded into round aluminum bars, and then some in powdered form, which they export at very expensive prices. Now, apart from the one that they melt and sell, we also have some stock in this particular warehouse, where the quantity you see here are from so many containers that we have been looking for all this while. We have found these cables here, which was actually sold to them with the connivance of some Ghanaians that we are gathering intelligence to arrest. But so far, on arrival here, we have been able to pick 8 Chinese suspects and then 1 Ghanaian, who is a manager. But the owner of the company, I would prefer to keep the name for now. Is on the run, but a team is on one hand for him, and we are sure very soon he will also be arrested.
Who is this owner and what's his nationality?
The owner is a Chinese. The owner is a Chinese, and the company is known as Ponlock Company Limited. They are solely into scrap materials, that's the aluminium scrap material. They buy and mold it into finished product and export.
Okay, how long have you been doing this investigation?
In fact, we commenced this investigation about 2 weeks ago, when intelligence came in that these ECG containers are being diverted to various locations. But in actual fact, it started maybe several months ago, even before elections. But it's now that the intel have gotten to us, and we are determined to investigate and get all those who even started. No matter when it started, about 2 or 3 years, we are determined to investigate and get the perpetrators arrested.
When you say that it started 2 weeks ago, I mean, we knew that upon the assumption of this administration, at the transition, what the minister said he handed over to him was in excess of about 3,000 or so containers. He mentioned, yes, he mentioned some amount of containers that are locked up at the port, which remains uncleared. Only for us to get to know yesterday or a day before yesterday that these containers, well over 1,000, have gotten missing. And so if you started the investigation about just 2 weeks ago, how do you juxtapose the concerns that people raise that these containers go missing under this administration?
As a secretariat, we can only speak to what we know after a complaint or a petition was received. So what I'm trying to say is that we received a petition 2 weeks ago, and what investigation has revealed so far is what I'm speaking to.
A petition from who?
A petition from a citizen of Ghana. It's not even one person. We have several people bringing in petitions, having gotten intel about it. So the secretariat picked it up. The secretariat operates in such a way that anybody at all can bring in a petition, and once we feel that petition borders on national security, we are obliged by law to commence investigation into it. One of them.
Would you apprise us exactly what the petition was seeking to do, or was seeking you to do?
The petitioners, all that they are seeking is that these are containers or cables that belong to the state. They are meant to provide electricity to Ghanaians. Some Ghanaians have not even gotten light in some various communities, especially in the villages. We have been hearing about people talking about Domso. Government is doing everything possible to ensure that electricity gets to everybody within the country. And so much investment has been put into this thing to import cables to extend electricity to everybody to make life stable or electricity stable. So if this thing is allowed to go on, then I don't see how we can stabilize electricity in the country. And for that matter, we only commence investigation to ensure that the gang that is involved in this activity, is arrested and dealt with according to law.
You can actually. That interview my colleague Komla Kloche had with Chief Superintendent Alhassan Osman, the Director of Investigation at the National Security Council there. So 40 of the containers, we understand from the minister, has been found, leaving some 1,307 in arrears. But then the investigation continues. So we'll keep an eye on this and be updating you a lot more here on TV3. But before we go, we've just got a release from the Ghana Education Service for the benefit of parents who are watching us right now, who have your children in the senior high schools. Oh, this is a release from the Ghana Education Service. It's going to be on the screen right now. They say rescheduling of reopening date for single-track schools. And the management of the Ghana Education Service wishes to inform all heads of single-track senior high and senior high technical schools that the reopening date for single-track schools has been rescheduled to 23rd April 2025. By this letter, regional directors of education are requested to communicate this information to all heads of the single-track senior high schools and the senior high technical schools to inform parents and guardians and students to take note of the new reopening date and prepare accordingly. So that's signed by Prince Ajimandia, the Director, Schools and Administrations Division, for and on behalf of the Acting Director General of the Ghana Education Service. So this is information for the benefit of parents out there. The reopening date for single-track schools and the secondary technical schools have been rescheduled, we understand, to the 23rd of April 2025. That's the information coming through right now. There's going to be more of this on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. As always, Flamingo Paint and Kel Tackle Toothpaste Happy Smile brought us the support for Ghana tonight. Make a date, same time tomorrow for another conversation. I was clothed by Kogra Clothing. My name is Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Simply